The chamber of the Galactic Tribunal was a breathtaking display of alien sophistication, an immense space suspended in the void, its walls shimmering with the light of distant stars. Platforms floated in intricate patterns, each one occupied by representatives from countless alien species. A low hum of translated languages reverberated through the air, blending with the soft glow of holographic records projecting evidence for all to see. In the center stood Commander Aaron Voss, humanity's sole delegate, his posture unyielding despite the oppressive atmosphere. The accusations against humanity loomed large on a holographic display above him, the words flashing in alien scripts before translating into common. Violation of intergalactic law, refusal to comply with euthanasia protocols. Aaron's gaze swept across the assembly. His voice, calm and steady, was amplified by the tribunal system. Inside, though, his thoughts churned. He knew this moment wasn't just about the fate of one man. It was about humanity's soul. The lead prosecutor, a towering Drash with glistening scales and piercing black eyes, rose to his full height. His voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Humans are reckless, arrogant creatures, incapable of understanding the delicate balance of intergalactic order. Your defiance is not just a violation of law, it's a threat to us all. A single life is inconsequential when weighed against the stability of the galaxy. Yet you refuse to act. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Drash continued, his tone sharp and scornful. The individual in question is a human, responsible for crimes that led to the deaths of thousands. Our laws are clear. Justice demands the ultimate penalty. And yet humanity says no. Why? Aaron stepped forward, his boots clicking softly against the polished surface of the human platform. His face remained impassive, but his words carried the weight of conviction. We don't kill humans. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Some delegates laughed openly, their vocalizations harsh and mocking. Others muttered in their native tongues, their disbelief palpable. On a nearby platform, a feathered emissary from the Aviarn Collective tilted her head quizzically. Is this a joke? A sentimentality born of primitive ideals? Aaron let the noise settle, his eyes fixed on the tribunal's head judge, a being with a translucent, jelly-like form that shimmered with shifting hues. When the judge finally spoke, their voice resonated as though it came from the depths of the cosmos. Commander Voss, the tribunal requires an explanation. Your refusal to comply with our protocols is unprecedented. Aaron met the judge's gaze, if the being could be said to have eyes at all. It's not sentimentality. It's principle. Humanity has endured centuries of bloodshed, wars, genocides, atrocities committed in the name of justice, vengeance, or fear. We've learned the cost of taking life too easily. We won't repeat those mistakes. Not even now. The Drash prosecutor snarled, his claws curling against the edge of his platform. Mistakes? You call this a mistake? This is a deliberate choice to undermine intergalactic unity. If every species adopted your so-called principles, there would be chaos. The galaxy survives because we make hard decisions. Aaron nodded, conceding the logic without agreeing to its conclusion. I understand your perspective. To you, this is about maintaining order. To us, it's about holding on to what makes us human. Killing one of our own, even for justice, erodes something fundamental in us. We don't take that lightly. A chitinous creature from the Xylar Syndicate clicked its mandibles in agitation. Your argument implies moral superiority. Are you suggesting the rest of us are wrong for upholding our laws? Aaron shook his head. Not wrong. Different. But ask yourselves this. What kind of galaxy do we create if life is expendable? If justice becomes another word for execution? We believe in second chances, in redemption. That belief isn't weakness. It's strength. The room fell into a tense silence, the weight of Aaron's words hanging in the air. The head judge's shimmering form pulsed as if in contemplation. The Drash prosecutor, however, was unmoved. Strength? He spat. Your so-called strength will doom you. Compassion is a luxury in a galaxy as vast and dangerous as this. Your refusal to act endangers us all. Aaron allowed the accusation to linger before responding, his voice measured but firm. You see danger in our compassion. We see potential. Every species in this room was once primitive, violent, and short-sighted. You evolved because you learned to work together, to trust. Humanity is no different. Our compassion isn't a threat, it's an invitation. The judge leaned forward slightly, their translucent form glowing brighter. An invitation to what, Commander Voss? Aaron took a breath, steadying himself. To a different way of thinking. To a galaxy where justice doesn't mean death. Where mistakes don't define a species, but how they choose to atone for them does. This isn't about one man. It's about who we want to become as a collective. A murmur of dissent rippled through the assembly again, but it was softer now, less certain. The prosecutor's eyes narrowed, his tail flicking in irritation. You believe your ideals will sway us? They won't. This tribunal operates on facts, not sentiments. Your refusal to comply will have consequences. Aaron stood his ground, his expression unchanging. We understand the risks. But we won't betray our principles. Humanity doesn't kill humans. Not anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, the alien delegates seemed to be grappling with the weight of Aaron's words. The tribunal's head judge finally spoke, their voice as steady as the stars. Your stance is clear, Commander Voss. The tribunal will deliberate. As the assembly adjourned, Aaron's gaze remained fixed on the vast expanse beyond the chamber. He knew the battle was far from over. But for now, humanity's voice had been heard. Aaron stood before the assembly, his voice steady, but his words carried a quiet intensity. Humanity's refusal to kill isn't a defiance born of arrogance or ignorance. It's the result of hard lessons learned through centuries of pain. We didn't reach this decision lightly. Our history is stained with the blood of those we deemed unworthy of life, sometimes justly, often not. He paused, letting his words settle in the chamber, then continued. Earth was once a fractured world. Wars were fought over resources, ideologies, and prejudices. Genocides were committed in the name of purity or dominance. We executed criminals, silenced dissenters, and waged wars of attrition. In those times, we believed ourselves righteous. But history has a way of holding up a mirror, and what we saw reflected back wasn't justice. It was fear, anger, and cruelty disguised as necessity. A holographic projection appeared behind him, an image of Earth's past. Trenches filled with soldiers, cities engulfed in flames, and the hollow eyes of victims stared out at the assembly. This was us, Aaron said softly. For centuries, we believed death was the answer to our problems. That erasing life could erase mistakes. But all it did was sound more destruction. We began to see a pattern. Every execution, every war, every act of violence claimed more than just lives. It claimed our humanity. A reptilian delegate from the Drashk Empire hissed, leaning forward. Your history of failure hardly seems like a justification for your defiance. If anything, it proves the necessity of firm justice. Mercy leads to weakness, and weakness leads to chaos. Aaron turned to address the Drashk directly, his expression calm. I've heard that argument before. It's one we used to make ourselves. In the 20th century, we believed in deterrence through strength, in punishment as a means of control. But deterrence didn't stop wars, and punishment didn't prevent crime. What did change us were the moments when we chose to value life over vengeance. He gestured to the hologram, which shifted to images of Earth's progress, people protesting for civil rights, the abolition of the death penalty in multiple nations, and global movements toward peace. We learned that protecting life, even when it's difficult or seems undeserved, builds trust, fosters unity, and leads to growth. It's not weakness, it's strength rooted in hope. The Varlian scholar, a slender figure with luminous, fluid-like skin, tilted their head. Hope is a beautiful concept, Commander, but it is fragile. Sacrificing one for the many is not cruelty, it's pragmatism. A single life cannot outweigh the needs of an entire society. Aaron nodded, acknowledging the point. I understand your reasoning. Pragmatism has its place. But let me tell you a story. He paused, and his voice softened. During one of our most devastating wars, a soldier committed unthinkable atrocities. He was a product of his time, following orders, believing his actions were justified by the needs of war. When the war ended, he was captured and tried. Many demanded his execution, rightly so, given his crimes. But instead, he was sentenced to life in confinement, with a chance for rehabilitation. Aaron's gaze swept the room, his tone steady but filled with emotion. That man spent decades reckoning with his actions. He worked to understand the pain he caused and, in time, dedicated himself to helping others. He became a teacher, guiding young minds toward peace. He didn't erase his past, but he transformed his future. If we had killed him, that transformation would never have been possible. And we would have lost more than a man. We would have lost the potential for redemption. The chamber fell silent. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Avian emissary spoke, her voice a blend of curiosity and skepticism. And how many have failed to redeem themselves? Surely you cannot rehabilitate all who commit such heinous acts. Aaron met her gaze. No, not all. Some refuse to change, and they remain confined. But we try, because every success is a testament to what's possible when we choose to see the value of life. It's not about perfection, it's about striving for something better. The Drash prosecutor rose again, his voice laced with disdain. Your idealism blinds you, Commander. The galaxy doesn't have the luxury of second chances. Your refusal to act decisively risks destabilizing everything we've built. Aaron faced him without flinching. And how stable is a galaxy built on fear? On the belief that life is expendable? If the foundation of order is the constant threat of death, then it's not order, it's oppression. Humanity has seen where that path leads, and we won't walk it again. The head judge's luminescent form shifted, their voice calm but weighted. Commander Voss, your argument is compelling, but it is steeped in human history and perspective. You ask us to consider your philosophy, but do you truly grasp the implications of imposing it on the galaxy? Aaron inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect. I don't ask you to adopt our philosophy wholesale. I only ask that you see us for who we are. We're not perfect, but we're trying to build a future where life is more than a tool or a liability. That's why we can't kill one of our own, no matter how much easier it would make things. The prosecutor's tail lashed in frustration. Easier? This is not about ease, human. It's about survival. Your morality is a luxury we cannot afford. Aaron's voice hardened slightly, his calm giving way to a quiet defiance. Perhaps. But morality is the only thing that keeps us from becoming the very monsters we claim to fight. If survival demands that we abandon everything we stand for, then what's the point of surviving at all? The judge's glow dimmed slightly, a sign of deliberation. Your words carry weight, Commander. But the tribunal cannot operate on philosophy alone. If humanity's principles lead to instability, the consequences will be severe. Aaron's expression didn't waver. We understand the risks. But we also understand the cost of losing our humanity. We won't betray our principles, not for convenience, not for fear, and not for survival. That's who we are. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. The assembly of alien delegates exchanged glances, some thoughtful, others skeptical. The Drash prosecutor's scornful glare remained fixed on Aaron, but a few of the quieter species seemed to shift in their seats, their expressions unreadable. The head judge finally spoke, their tone measured. Very well, Commander Voss. The tribunal will take your words into account as we deliberate. But know this, ideals are not immune to consequences. Aaron nodded once, his posture unyielding. Neither is fear. As the session adjourned, the echoes of Aaron's words lingered in the chamber, a challenge not just to the tribunal, but to the galaxy itself. The trial resumed, the chamber alive with whispers and glances as witnesses from across the galaxy stepped forward to testify against humanity. Their testimonies painted a picture of a species unpredictable and dangerous, a wild card in the delicate balance of intergalactic harmony. A Calthor merchant, her scales gleaming in the light of the tribunal, hissed through sharp teeth. Humans are a paradox. They extend hands of peace one moment, then wield weapons the next. I've seen their compassion. They once saved my crew during a solar storm. But in the same breath, they risked their lives recklessly to save others, disregarding protocol and risking the stability of our alliance. A ripple of murmurs filled the chamber, the statement hanging in the air. The Drash prosecutor seized the moment. Recklessness masquerading as bravery. Commander Voss, this is your species, emotional, inconsistent, and a threat to stability. How do you defend such chaos? Aaron stepped forward, his expression calm but resolute. Recklessness and bravery often look the same to an outsider, but intent matters. When we act, it's not out of carelessness but because we believe every life has value. Our compassion may seem unpredictable to you, but it's rooted in something we've learned over centuries. When we stand together, we're stronger than when we stand alone. The next witness, a Norran diplomat with shimmering silver skin, took the stand. Their voice was musical but carried an edge. Humanity is fascinating, I'll admit. During a border dispute on my homeworld, a human mediator resolved the conflict not by force but by appealing to our shared history of struggle. It worked, yes, but they took unnecessary risks, risked lives on nothing but hope. Their unpredictability makes them unreliable in matters of galactic governance. Aaron's lips twitched into the faintest of smiles. Unreliable? Or innovative? Humanity has faced countless crises, many of our own making, and yet we've survived by thinking differently, by refusing to accept that violence is the only solution. Your dispute was resolved because we dared to believe there was another way. Is that truly a weakness? The Drash prosecutor slammed a clawed hand against his platform. Enough of these anecdotes. Commander Voss, let us deal in facts. Humanity's history is littered with wars, violence, and destruction. You claim to have evolved, but your kind has not changed, it has merely hidden its teeth. Shall we test this theory? A holographic simulation materialized in the center of the chamber, a chillingly vivid scenario. It depicted a human scientist on a distant colony, his experiments spiraling out of control and unleashing a pathogen that threatened an entire star system. The simulation paused at a critical juncture, the tribunal's head judge narrating. In this scenario, the scientist could be terminated, ending the spread of the pathogen. Sparing him risks billions of lives. Commander Voss, would humanity still refuse to act? Aaron's jaw tightened, the tension in the room palpable. We've faced situations like this before. And we've found solutions that don't require killing. Quarantines, containment procedures, advanced countermeasures. We're problem solvers. Ending a life is easy, but solving the problem without resorting to death is where true strength lies. The prosecutor sneered. Your so-called solutions take time, Commander. Time that could cost lives. Would you gamble with billions to spare one? Aaron met the prosecutor's gaze, unyielding. Every life matters. That's not a gamble, it's a commitment. By sparing one, we challenge ourselves to save everyone. Our ingenuity stems from that challenge. If we compromise, if we take the easy path, we lose what drives us to innovate and improve. The chamber fell silent for a moment, the weight of Aaron's words settling on the assembly. But then the murmurs began again, this time more divided. A delegate from the Aviern Collective spoke up, her voice hesitant. There is merit in what the human says. My species has long sacrificed individuals for the greater good, but it has always left a shadow on our conscience. Perhaps there is wisdom in seeking alternatives. The Drash prosecutor whirled to face her, his voice sharp. Foolishness. You let sentiment cloud your judgment. Humanity's ideals are a luxury we cannot afford. Another voice joined in, this one from a crystalline being of the Lamari Concord. And yet, have we not grown complacent? Perhaps their refusal to kill stems not from weakness, but from a strength we've forgotten, a belief in something greater than survival. Tension crackled through the room as the alien delegates began to murmur among themselves, their unity splintering under the weight of Aaron's arguments. The head judge's shimmering form pulsed, calling for order. Commander Voss, they said, their tone even but firm. You've presented your philosophy well, but the tribunal deals in realities. Words are not enough to sway us. Humanity's refusal to comply remains a direct challenge to intergalactic law. Aaron stepped forward once more, his voice unwavering. I understand the position you're in. But humanity's history is proof that survival and morality don't have to be at odds. Every species in this chamber was once primitive, violent, and driven by fear. You evolved because you found ways to coexist. So have we. Our refusal to kill isn't defiance. It's our way of ensuring that coexistence thrives, even when it's difficult. The prosecutor snarled, his frustration boiling over. Enough of your sanctimonious drivel! This is not about coexistence, it's about order. Your kind will either comply, or the tribunal will act to enforce its decision. Aaron stood tall, his gaze sweeping the chamber. Then enforce it. But know this, humanity will not change because of fear or threats. We've made our choice, and we'll stand by it, no matter the cost. The room grew deathly quiet, the tension thick enough to cut. The alien delegates exchanged glances, some troubled, others resolute. The head judge's glow dimmed slightly, signaling deliberation. We will consider the arguments presented, they said finally, their voice heavy. But understand, Commander Voss, that the tribunal cannot delay judgment indefinitely. The consequences of your defiance will reverberate far beyond this chamber. Aaron gave a single nod, his expression unreadable. Then let them. Humanity has faced consequences before, and we've survived. What matters is that we survive as ourselves. As the session adjourned, the divided murmurs of the alien assembly followed Aaron out, a sign that humanity's trial was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. As the tribunal reconvened, the air in the chamber was tense. Aaron stood ready to continue his defense, but before he could speak, a ripple of murmurs spread through the assembly. A delegate from the Zarnathi collective, a species seldom seen in such gatherings, stepped forward. Her appearance was striking, luminous tendrils floated around her translucent form, and her voice resonated like an ethereal chord. I am Chiral of the Zarnathi, she began, her tone calm yet commanding. My species has not spoken at a tribunal in centuries, but today, I feel compelled. Commander Voss's words remind me of a path my people once walked, a path that nearly destroyed us. All eyes turned to her, curious and wary. The Drash prosecutor narrowed his gaze. The Zarnathi rarely involve themselves in the affairs of others. Why now? Chiral's form flickered, her luminous tendrils dimming momentarily. Because I see a reflection of my species in humanity, both its promise and its peril. She turned to address the entire assembly. Long ago, the Zarnathi adhered to what we called the extermination law. We believed that any individual who endangered our society should be eradicated without question. It was efficient, logical, and utterly devoid of compassion. Her voice grew quieter, almost mournful. We prided ourselves on our order, our efficiency. But we failed to see what we were losing. Over centuries, we eliminated not only those who posed immediate threats but those who thought differently, those who challenged norms, those who made mistakes. By the time we realized our error, we had decimated ourselves. Our numbers dwindled, and so did our creativity, our diversity, our very essence. The chamber was silent, the weight of her words palpable. Chiral turned her gaze to Aaron. Commander Voss, your people's refusal to take life, even when it seems justifiable, is not weakness. It is a strength we failed to recognize in time. I speak today because I do not wish to see another species repeat our mistake. The Drash prosecutor rose, his tail lashing with agitation. Your story is tragic, Chiral, but it is irrelevant. Humanity's refusal to act threatens not only themselves but the stability of the galaxy. This sentimentality will cost us dearly. Chiral's tendrils flared, her voice resonating with quiet defiance. Is it sentimentality to seek understanding? To choose creation over destruction? Perhaps it is you, prosecutor, who cannot see the long-term cost of your actions. Before the prosecutor could respond, the head judge raised a hand, their form pulsing with quiet authority. Enough. Chiral's testimony is noted. Commander Voss, you may proceed. Aaron stepped forward, his voice steady. I appreciate Chiro's words, but I won't deny the seriousness of the case before us. Humanity is not perfect. The individual at the center of this trial, a human scientist named Dr. Elias Cade, committed a grave error. His experiment unleashed a bioweapon that claimed thousands of lives on the planet Endros 4. It was a mistake born of arrogance and oversight, and the consequences have been devastating. The assembly buzzed with murmurs, the prosecutor seizing the opportunity to interject. You admit this, and yet you still refuse to end his life? Commander Voss, how can you defend such a man? Aaron's expression was grave. Because while Dr. Cade's actions were catastrophic, they were not malicious. He has taken full responsibility for his mistake and has dedicated himself to undoing the damage he caused. Killing him will not bring back those who were lost. But allowing him to live, to atone, to continue his work, it might save countless others in the future. The prosecutor scoffed. Words. Empty promises. What guarantee do we have that he won't fail again? Aaron hesitated for a moment, then said, I didn't come here to make guarantees. I came here to offer solutions. He pressed a button on his console, and a holographic device appeared in the center of the chamber, a sleek, intricate piece of technology that pulsed faintly with light. This, Aaron explained, is humanity's latest development, the Neural Empathy Amplifier. It allows beings to experience another's emotions as if they were their own. It was designed for conflict resolution, to help bridge divides between individuals and species. I propose we use it here, today, to understand the truth of Dr. Cade's remorse. The chamber erupted in whispers, some intrigued, others skeptical. The Avian emissary spoke, her voice cautious. Empathy is a powerful tool, but it can also be dangerous. Are you certain this device is safe? Aaron nodded. The amplifier doesn't alter or manipulate emotions. It simply provides clarity, allowing one to feel what another feels. I'm willing to demonstrate it myself if the tribunal permits. The head judge deliberated for a moment before nodding. Very well. Proceed. Aaron stepped back as the amplifier activated, its soft glow expanding to envelop the chamber. The first to experience the connection was the Drash prosecutor, who reluctantly agreed to the demonstration. His expression shifted from defiance to something more complicated as Dr. Cade's emotions were transmitted to him, waves of profound regret, guilt, and a desperate desire to make amends. Other delegates followed, one by one. The Avian emissary trembled as she felt the depth of Cade's remorse, the crushing weight of his responsibility. Even Chiro, who had spoken so eloquently before, seemed moved by the raw emotion. But the most profound shift came when the empathy amplifier extended to the entire assembly. The delegates felt not only Cade's pain but humanity's collective anguish, the sorrow of a species that had made countless mistakes yet continued to strive for redemption. Tears welled in the eyes of some delegates, their skepticism softening into understanding. The crystalline Lamari delegate spoke, their voice trembling. This is not the mind of a monster. This is the heart of a being who suffers because he values life. How can we condemn such a soul? The prosecutor, though visibly shaken, attempted one final argument. Emotions are not absolution. Remorse does not undo what has been done. Aaron stepped forward, his voice resolute. You're right. Remorse doesn't undo the past. But it shapes the future. If we deny Dr. Cade the chance to atone, we lose not only him but the opportunity to prove that redemption is possible. Isn't that what progress is about, not just survival, but growth? The head judge's glow intensified, signaling the tribunal's deliberation. The chamber was silent, save for the faint hum of the amplifier. As the delegates processed what they had experienced, the very foundation of the trial seemed to shift. For the first time, the question was no longer about humanity's defiance, but about whether the galaxy itself could afford to ignore the possibility of change. The Galactic Tribunal chamber was silent as the head judge's glow shifted into a rhythmic pulse, a sign that the verdict was being transmitted to the assembly. Aaron stood at his podium, outwardly calm, though his hands gripped the edges with quiet intensity. The delegates from dozens of species watched with anticipation, their varied expressions reflecting the weight of what was about to unfold. After what felt like an eternity, the judge's voice resonated throughout the chamber. By a majority vote, the tribunal has decided. Humanity will be permitted to spare the life of the accused, Dr. Elias Cade. A collective murmur spread through the assembly. Relief washed over Aaron, though it was tempered by the judge's next words. However, this decision does not absolve humanity of responsibility. You must ensure that the accused is never again in a position to endanger life. To that end, Dr. Cade will remain under constant supervision, and his future work will be restricted to efforts of restitution and repair. Any deviation will result in immediate consequences. Aaron bowed his head slightly, his voice steady but filled with conviction. On behalf of humanity, I thank the tribunal for this decision. We accept your conditions and will uphold them to the highest standard. The prosecutor's tail lashed once, but he remained silent, his earlier confidence now subdued. The alien delegates exchanged glances, some approving, others skeptical, and a few contemplative. The decision had been made, but its ripple effects were only beginning. Aaron took a step forward, addressing the assembly with a final statement. This trial has been more than a test of one man's fate. It has been a test of what we, as sentient beings, value most. Across the galaxy, we face countless challenges, wars, scarcity, misunderstandings, but the solution will never lie in how quickly we destroy. It will lie in how deeply we understand. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. Humanity is far from perfect. We have stumbled more times than I care to admit. But each time, we've found our way back, not by tearing each other down, but by lifting each other up. Compassion is not a weakness. It is the foundation of progress. And it is a lesson we are willing to share, just as we are willing to learn from all of you. Several delegates leaned in, their expressions thoughtful. Even the brash prosecutor seemed less rigid, though he remained silent. Aaron's words were not just for humanity's defense, they were a challenge to the galaxy itself. As the tribunal adjourned, delegates began filing out, some casting curious glances at Aaron. Cairo from the Zarnathi approached him, her luminous tendrils glowing faintly. Your words carry weight, Commander Voss. Perhaps more than you realize. Thank you, Cairo, Aaron replied. Your testimony was invaluable. I hope it inspires others as much as it inspired me. She inclined her head. Change is never easy, but it is necessary. I wish your species well. As the delegates departed, their conversations carried fragments of doubt, hope, and self-reflection. The Avian emissary was overheard speaking to her entourage about reassessing certain laws back on her home planet. Even the stoic crystalline Lumari delegate murmured something about the importance of balance between logic and compassion. The impact of the trial was spreading like ripples in a pond. Back on Earth, Aaron stood on the observation deck of a massive orbital station, gazing at the blue-green planet below. His thoughts lingered on the trial and what it meant for humanity's place in the galaxy. The empathy amplifier had been pivotal, not just in swaying the tribunal, but in demonstrating humanity's potential to create tools that united rather than divided. Behind him, a technician approached. Commander Voss, the team is ready for your input on the next phase of the Empathy Amplifier project. Aaron turned, nodding. Let's ensure it's not just a tool for conflict resolution but a bridge to understanding. We've seen what it can do. Now it's time to make it accessible to all. The technician smiled and left, leaving Aaron to his thoughts. The trial had shown him the fragility of empathy in a galaxy often driven by fear and pragmatism. But it had also shown him its power, a power humanity could nurture and share. Far from the tribunal's chambers, humanity continued to work, not just on advanced technology, but on fostering a culture that valued collaboration over domination. On Earth, Dr. Cade was already in a secure facility, dedicating his life to repairing the harm he had caused. His remorse was no longer just an emotion, it was a driving force for change. Aaron's gaze shifted to the stars, their distant light a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy, and the challenges that lay ahead. The tribunal's decision had been a victory, but it was not the end. It was a beginning, a chance for humanity to prove that their philosophy of valuing life could coexist with the complexities of an intergalactic society. As the orbital station hummed with activity, Aaron allowed himself a moment of quiet hope. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was ready to show what it meant to cherish every life, to seek redemption, and to build a future where empathy was not an anomaly, but the norm. Somewhere, among the endless expanse of stars, Aaron knew, a new chapter was beginning, not just for humanity, but for every species willing to see the value in understanding over destruction. The journey would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long time, he felt that it was a journey worth taking.